The views and opinions expressed in the following program do not necessarily reflect those of this station and/or Confederation College.
Alrighty. Well, welcome to Spirit Canoe. My name is Bob Goujon, and we're more spirit than anything tonight. Logan.
Yep.
Sorry, I don't know Logan's last name.
Potvin, Potvin.
Potvin. Logan is kindly sitting in. We've kind of, our scheduled things didn't happen, which sometimes, as I say, in this business world, whatever. Which raises the question, maybe we should design the show a little differently. Maybe the one-on-one works if the one-on-one shows, materializes. But if it doesn't, then we're kind of left scrambling. So, but anyways, Logan, thank you for popping in and joining the program. So you're normally on the other side of the
usually
glass.
I'm like doing your audio and like
Right.
turning you on and turning you off. So
Right. So have you been part of the Camp TV setup now for a little bit?
I've been in the program for about a year and a half or so. Well, actually,
Okay.
yeah, it's almost a year and a half. But doing the actual radio shows is only been like 2 weeks. So
Oh, okay. So you're fairly new to this.
yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. So how did you come to the program?
I actually used to take Comtech at St. Ignatius because
Comtech, right?
Yeah, communications technology. So
Okay.
a very miniaturized version of our program. So I learned how to use cameras, photography, everything like that. And then one of our professors, actually, Steve, he would come in and talk to our teacher, and then he'd show us all the videos and stuff. And I'm like, wow, I can actually make a career out of this. So yeah, that's how I got started in liking broadcasting.
Right. So that was, you said it. Where was that?
At St. Ignatius.
Okay.
Oh,
That's
God.
just around the corner from where I live.
Oh,
Just
really?
Right next to Boulevard Lake. It used to be Lakeview High School.
Yep.
That's what it was called when I went to.
God, I feel okay. I know this is awkward to say, but
No,
God,
no.
I feel old. Like that was 2 years. That was like 4 years ago when I first met Steve, and now
Well,
it's.
I'm talking like more than 4 decades ago. So you shouldn't feel too old. But at any rate, so that's more or less the. Sometimes it is just one little spark, right?
Yeah,
something
'cause, like-
happens, and then that ends up being your life path.
Yeah, like that's how I actually got started in this program. But originally, I wanted to do like on-air kind of things when I was younger, and then I got away from broadcasting. And the funny thing is, originally I wanted to be a welder, so it's completely two different sides of the technical spectrum.
Well, you're joining things together.
Well, yeah, but it's like one thing I'm working with fire and electricity. The other one I'm
Right.
just working
Just
with electricity and signals.
There you go. Yeah, hopefully not starting any fires.
Hopefully not. Fingers crossed, hasn't happened yet.
Yeah. Well, interesting. So the Camp TV part is relatively new for you.
Yeah, we actually got the web station working last year. So,
Right.
like up and running. And
Are
then
you doing
starting
anything
shows.
else other than, obviously, you're doing more than teching?
Yeah, I'm actually doing my own show.
Oh, you are? What's that?
It's Locked in Logan, and it's
Oh,
like a
okay.
top 15 countdown type thing.
Oh, okay. What kind of music?
Pop right now, but I'm trying to incorporate some alternative and maybe some rock in there.
Right.
And I might actually do.
Now,
Well,
are you doing it out of the web TV, or is it?
I'm doing it right
radio?
here. I'm like doing it here, but it's just
the
radio part.
Just the
'cause,
audio part.
Yeah, I don't have a co-host. I mean, if I'm stuck on air, it's gonna look really awkward if I'm just sitting here. So yeah, here comes music in a second while I click the button.
Well, yeah, I did radio for 15 years in Ottawa,
Oh, okay.
University of Ottawa, a radio station.
Yeah.
But then that was mainly the same thing, but just couldn't see us.
Okay.
But otherwise, it's more or less the same idea.
Yeah, well, like my uncle used to do stuff at LU Radio because he is actually a blues musician. So he'd what was the show called? I think it was How Blue Can You Get? So yeah.
Yeah, I like radio. The idea that I have to figure out which one's on.
Yeah. Just watch for the little tally like going around.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I guess the interesting thing is I'm fascinated a little bit, although I guess yourself having just joined Camp TV, what sort of, I remember I was interviewed by Steve and Katie, and I guess Michelle stuck her head in the middle of the interview. The whole idea of the Camp TV as a platform and trying to, I mean, on the one hand, it's obviously as the new technology, it's relatively cheap to produce. Relatively, I mean, it's what I mean is the internet part.
Yeah, the internet part. Yeah,
No,
but I
the
mean, like when you
studio
look at
is
the
not-
actual like
no,
cameras and stuff.
yes,
I mean,
yes.
this was.
Yes.
Oh
No,
God!
I'm
If only I
thinking
could
more
remember
just-
how. If only I could remember how much the studio was worth.
Right. Well, no. The interesting thing is the idea was to have a platform that you could broadcast in essentially around the world, right? So the idea that you have potential world access for such a cheap price, which is what the internet obviously.
Like, I mean, anybody can stream through live, and then, I mean, I watch a couple of gaming channels and stuff through. Oh, look at that. Katie's trying to give me a sign right now, and I just can't seem to read it without my glasses. She's giving us all these really funny signs. I mean, if only I could read it. If only there was another way that she could maybe talk to me about something, like telling me what was on that sign.
Oh, the low-tech version of communication.
Yeah, like passing notes back and forth in class. It's funny, I still used to do that in grade 12, even though it's like, oh, hey, you can just text your friends.
So how long have you been in the program then?
1.5 years, and I graduated from St. Ignatius again a year and a half ago.
Yeah. So what are you taking here?
Broadcasting.
No, I read it. I mean,
what do you mean?
Concentration, or does everybody do the same
everybody
thing?
does. It's the same course build. Yeah, like for first semester you focus on just like getting well-rounded. Like you get a little bit of everything except for audio, which you start to get incorporated into second semester, and then you also get an on-air class, a media journalism class, and then you get about, I almost want to say 4 like classes expanded. So you get, in first semester you'd get like a studio class, which is learning how to do major productions. You get script writing, technical operations. God, it feels like forever ago since I took the first year. Oh my God. Camera and visual storytelling and editing. And then there's your elective and photography.
Now, I remember I attended a PD, a professional development day, last spring here, which was Aboriginally themed. And there were some films and documentaries that were being produced by students.
Yep.
That we saw some of it. So where does that fit in the program? Does everybody do that?
That is in our second year, which we're doing right now. A lot of us we're still in the kind of pre-plan / production stage of it. We all have to create a 6 to 12 minute documentary on any topic we choose, as long as it's appropriate for a documentary to be made. So some people are doing it on a local pizza place that just started up, like Both Hands. I can't remember where it is, but it's just...
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Another group is doing it on, coincidentally, a stripper.
All right.
Yeah, it's a really wide range of where everybody's going.
Oh, okay. Because one of the things that I bumped into, because in terms of trying to go around and meet people at different organizations, one of the things that does creep up is the idea that would they have access potentially or to documentaries and such. In other words, rather than just coming on the show, is it conceivable that organizations could suggest a documentary proposal that the students could take up? Does that fit, or does that sound like it's...
It's more of us going out and finding our doc topics. Although if Michelle is talking to somebody and that comes across as a potential
in other words,
story.
could you have a list that you were given a list of, here are some organizations that people might be interested in having documentaries done about what they're up to?
If we're really stuck for ideas, I think that they'd be like, okay, guys, here's some ideas for you guys. But otherwise, it's mostly like, go out, find your doc topic, and then work with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you have any thoughts of yourself?
Yeah, I'm actually in a team with our producer for our unsigned show, Jacob, and then one of the camera people, Katie. We're doing a doc on somebody who was involved in the Army. So,
okay.
Yeah, I can't really say too much about it because it's supposed to be a surprise. But
I see. Yeah. For the guy in the Army? Or
surprise for everybody else to see.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I assume he knows that he's the subject, or is it?
Yeah, he does know that he's the subject. We actually met with him the other day. We were talking about it. It was actually coincidentally right after I got my tattoo, but.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and we talked. He was really all for it. Like he has pictures, videos, if possible, whatever. Yeah.
Well, what about the idea, although that you may not be able to speak to this? I'm just thinking of different ideas because on the one hand, the college has a lot of resources. Students have access to that, obviously, by being in the program. But obviously, at the same time, it's the college, promotes itself as being here to tell other people's stories, the community stories, to represent the community in some sense. So I guess what I'm beginning to wonder about is how folks from the community can perhaps utilize the resources that are here. I know there are. I'm trying to think of who I was on the Confederation website, and I think it might have been the Applied Research Department.
I actually worked on a video for them over the summer.
Yes, exactly. All right. So they basically, if you look on their website, which is part of the college website, together, that's how they represent themselves. Is here's the college has all of these facilities, all of these resources, whether it's broadcasting or medical program or whatever, the various resources that are, and more or less asking for proposals from the community that the college will, through the applied research program, bring those proposals to life. So I guess it's that concept.
Yeah.
Sort of with the broadcasting in mind.
Like I kind of like the most I can really talk about on that is the whole like video we worked on over the summer. We actually got
that sounds interesting. Yeah.
The applied 5 northern colleges was actually Northern, Sioux, Canadore, Cambrian, and then ours, who actually asked for a promotional video, only about like 2 minutes long or so, and we worked on that over the summer, and it actually turned out pretty good from what I've seen because I helped shoot and then helped organize, but my partner, she was editing it, and I haven't seen the final product yet, although I know it's done. So
right. So that was all done through the applied research program. Is that right?
I believe so. I just know that it was asked for us to produce it for them.
Right. But they would presumably
Yeah.
That's good for me to know where where the dots are that I need to connect.
Yeah.
So that's where I need to go then. Is the applied research department. So if you're out there and you're listening, I'm coming. Yeah. So what are your hopes for after you're finished up here? Do you have any sort of career plans?
Hopefully going to.
Do you want to stay here? Do you want to go somewhere else?
See, originally I wanted to go somewhere else, but it's just I don't know, Thunder Bay's home, so stay here for a little while, then maybe explore.
Right. And what's your impression of the opportunities here from a media point of view?
Personally, I think they're okay. Yeah. Like
maybe just do you feel you could fill that in a little bit? I mean, most people might think, oh, okay, well, there's the radio and television stations.
I feel like radio might be a bit stronger to get into because there's so many more other departments. Like there's marketing, there's promotions, there's street teams, there's on-air reporting, which is generally takes a couple months, years to get into. And like going out and reporting, like we actually had a reporter from 105.3 Country FM come in, and she was asking some of the students about what happened last Wednesday with everything that happened in Ottawa.
Yes.
So yeah, we were talking about that, and just I mentioned to her, oh, hey, yeah, I'm looking to get into radio. And she was like, oh, okay, yeah. And then we started talking back and forth, and then apparently there's stuff going on at CKPR, there's stuff going on at Rock 94, TBT has a few openings. Like usually we have enough placements because there's a lot of people in our program who want to stay local for placement, and I mean, there's a lot of options for us.
Well, that's what I was sort of curious about. So in terms of the options, are there like... are you aware of like private film companies? I know of Thunderstone Films, for example, which produces some, again, aboriginally themed material. Right, a few films that I've Walk a Mile.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Yeah, I was gonna say like I don't know too many private film companies in town. I just know that Generator, I believe, is local, or they like rented out our studio, or they rent out our studio every now and then, or there's Westfort Productions, and I don't quite know if they're just video or if they're audio. I don't really know that much.
Right. Well, right. Okay, maybe you're just not the right person at this point to be asking. The questions are a bit unfair, but I guess I was just curious to what extent you had the option of, other than the radio and television, what the local opportunities were for media. Of course, you could always create your own YouTube channel and...
I actually do have a few videos on YouTube like that I've edited just for fun. I mean, I've taken my old iPhone videos. They're really poorly scaled. I mean, when you film on an iPhone and you put it into an editing software, like your screen might be this big, but the video shows up about like just a little tiny square like that.
Right.
So you have to scale it, and then you lose quality, and then people's voices go out of sync, and it looks okay, but it's not the best it could be.
Right. So that film you did then, that was kind of your own
the promo video.
Right. Any other things you've worked on?
That was what I did for the summer, and we did that for the college, but everything else has been mostly like in class. Like we've done news stories, we've done news stories, majors. We actually did a shotcast last year, and shout out to Wayne, who's working the switcher and the cameras. He was our director, and look, there's a thumb. He gave us a thumbs up. Yeah, that's all we've really done.
Right.
That's gone out to the community, I should say. Sorry.
Right. Is there any thoughts to, like, like you refer to news, because one of the things that I'm fascinated, and one of the reasons why I wanted to start the show, is I feel we don't hear enough of our own stories. So much of at least the media on television, for example, is dominated out of the big centers, right?
Yeah.
It comes out of Toronto and politics from Ottawa and so on. So as a result, they tell the stories, and as a result, we have to listen to their version of who we all are. So the idea of having a platform, and that's what I've understand from, as I said earlier, from the interview with Steve and Katie and Michelle, that the idea is that Camp TV is to some extent be a platform for Northern Ontario to tell its own stories to the world.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the idea of news. For example, we have some local news, but is the college thought at this point, do you get any sense that there's an impetus to produce a news service, for example, which is a fairly difficult thing to do, but out of the college resources?
See, I don't think we've ever really discussed that, because then you'd have to get people in here like every morning or every night, and then produce it every other day or every day, and then it's just like time consuming.
Well, it
and
doesn't
it's
have
like,
to be a daily. It could be like weekly news.
Yeah.
Right. That sort of thing. I take it that type of show hasn't come across as a proposal yet?
I don't think it's come across yet. It might one day. I don't know. It's just the whole, like, you have to get your stories ready, and then, I mean, you got to decide half hour, that whole thing.
It requires an organization and more resources than perhaps at this point the Camp TV is based to produce.
Yeah, because
it seems like an interesting goal.
Yeah, like, it's just, like I said, we did that last year for our studio class. We made a Shaw cast that went to Shaw, aired.
Oh, okay.
But like, just coming up with that was even like, we had everything down to time. Like, you had to have your opening, then we had news stories, and then some news stories were longer or shorter than other ones, and then there was one that started right in the middle of it, and then that was really interesting because our timing was all thrown off, and then we were 30 seconds under. It's just the whole timing and like going out and finding the stories, getting them ready, and that's something that Shaw is does. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like, that's what they do with Thunder Bay Go. They go out and find stories and then tell the stories.
Yes.
Sarah MacArthur.
Yes, no. I'm aware of that. I'm just, that's fair enough. I guess. Yeah. Well, I guess that's more or less along the lines. So that news, is that a course? Is it a news course?
It's part of our curriculum. We have a media journalism course in second semester, which teaches you how to make news stories. It's minute and a half, I believe, is our maximum, and I believe a minute minimum. Like, I did one on the web station when it started up, and interviewed Katie, interviewed some of the second years because they were doing live radio shows as part of a project.
Right.
And
Right. Yeah. Okay. I guess I'm sort of imagining the possibility of an independent news service from Northern Ontario. I mean, the only one that currently I'm aware of that is Wabate News, which has radio, television, not here, but in Sioux Lookout in that, and they produce a newspaper.
Oh, okay.
So they're producing a fairly substantial amount of content cross-platform. So must have the organization. I'm trying to get them in here.
Oh, okay.
I contacted them once and had some conversations, but I really need to get back to them. But they seem to be have created a platform, an information platform that is based here, and it would be interesting to model upon. So I was just kind of curious to what extent the curriculum at this point is reflecting that sort of objective.
Okay, yeah, because like, we had a little bit of news, and then now we're getting into the like documentary, and like, we're doing music videos right now. Like, we're all trying to learn how to do team production kind of things right now, even though we did that last year for news. Right. And we're just trying to get a really wide taste.
Now, I realize on the one hand, as students, of course, you're just trying to learn the techniques and such. But at the same time, all the resources are there for providing an information platform, which, as I say, that's what I gather Camp TV is trying to be. It's not really trying to pretend. Yeah. Right? It's not rehearsing for the idea that, well, we're going to graduate to the real thing later. It's actually trying to be the real thing.
Sort of, yeah. Like, it's for the community to come in, tell their stories, tell their shows. But
I mean,
it's like,
we're not faking it.
yeah, I know.
Right?
It's like
it's
real,
not
like
rehearsing for
like, hey, we're live right now.
That's right. That's what I'm getting at. Is in other words, the resources that are here are being utilized to actually create the thing, as opposed to practice in anticipation of the real thing. It's trying to be the real thing. So from that vantage point of creating an information service, really, so filling in those gaps. So what is it? What would be necessary to? You've got all the technological resources. It's really a kind of an organizational issue to take the next step, which is, and whether or not I'm not aware of whether the folks in broadcasting see that as the next step, but to actually begin. As I say, in fact, they have taken it because that's what this is supposed to be.
Yeah, except a lot of, like, us working in the web station isn't necessarily a major part of our curriculum. We don't spend a lot of time in here.
Right.
We have this
right
for, like, we do work in here, but it's not like a major part. Oh, hey, we're doing all radio this semester. We're going to just focus on audio. We're trying to get that whole wide, diverse thing. We're learning, like, if people want to be in here and do their things on Camp TV and make the stories of themselves and making a story come to light, then that is what they'd go in here for, pitch for a show and do it that way. It's just a matter of, again, organizational things and who wants to go out and do news stories and news things.
Right. Well, I guess the point I was getting at is, on the one hand, there's the classroom stuff.
Yep.
And then there's the idea, which, as I say, in a lot of contexts, is you're learning certain skills so that you can graduate into the real world, which is outside the college. Mm-hmm. You know, if you're practicing to become a nurse or an engineer or whatever, you're practicing, and then you're going to go get a job with an engineering company, or you're going to get a job at the hospital or something. Yeah. Camp TV is taking the resources as I see it, and it's not pretending to be preparation for something later. It's trying to be the thing itself. That's the point I'm trying to make. Yeah. Is that it's actually, because that's when I had my conversation with Steve and Katie and Michelle, that's how they described it. That to be a platform, an information platform, presenting Northern Ontario to the world. Yeah. So we're not pretending. We're not practicing.
And I'm not, like, necessarily saying that we're pretending. I'm just
I'm not. I'm not.
I know, it's just coming off as criticism to me when you're saying it like that. I wanted to know what you're trying to get across here.
Well, I'm just making.
I'm not really understanding.
I'm just trying to make the distinction between the two ways of looking at how the resources here might be used. And so I'm just curious to what extent Camp TV might indicate a set of projects or a trajectory or a goal for just like the. As I was talking about the applied research, right? So it's taking the resource as they present them. You read their description of themselves on the website. They're saying, okay, we're gonna make the resources that are available here at the college for people in the community to actually produce real stuff. Yeah. Just like you said, that little promotional thing that you did for the colleges, that was real promotion for real organizations in real time, if you like, as opposed to just preparing for that as some future occupational possibilities. You're actually in the classroom, you're producing real stuff for real people. So, and that's what I'm imagining that. So I'm just sort of exploring how much.
Oh yeah, because sorry, like when you were saying it, it just like came off with this tone of criticism, and I was like,
no,
really?
I'm just making the distinction.
Okay.
Just trying to make the distinction between being in the classroom, preparing, as opposed to taking those same resources and utilizing to produce real stuff in real time. So, and that's what I see, obviously, what we're trying to do here, that this platform is not just a training session for students. Camp TV is not supposed to be just a trainer.
Yeah, like this isn't for training. Like we learn training classroom-wise. We're not, like I said, we're not really training in here. Like this is us volunteering, whoever's down here in a crew. Right. So yeah, like we're getting trained in class for things.
Yeah. Anyway, well, I was just exploring the idea of the broadcasting department has as part of its internal mandate. Yeah. To actually produce real stuff. That's why I was sort of talking about the information system idea and the idea of a news service. Mm-hmm. So just as Camp TV is a kind of real platform meant for real content in real time, insofar as you're in class doing news, what would be the next step to take those resources and turn them into an actual news service that wasn't just in training, but was actually producing news for the community.
Well, then you need somebody to actually like pitch the show idea. That's the thing. We don't do that. Like I said, we did that last year. We do that as one part of the curriculum, and then that's it.
Well, I guess because
it is
my
actually
question
produced
isn't
for show.
really for a student.
Yeah.
The question is really for the people running the broadcast program. But I was just sort of curious to what extent you sensed any of those opportunities or possibilities from your at this point.
Nope, nothing really.
Oh, okay. Well, anybody else in there want to come on TV?
Yeah, come on, Nigel. Or wait. Okay, cool.
Okay. Sure, sounds good. We're throwing to a break real quick. This is the fully improvised version of Web TV.
Yes, it is.
Sean?
Nigel.
There are no
that a lot.
letters. I got an E in there.
Yeah.
Sean and depending on how you spell Sean there, if it's yes. Anyways, so you're in the program as well,
Yeah,
student.
yeah.
So what drew you into broadcasting?
I'm a second-year broadcaster, but I especially like the editing portion
Okay.
of it that we all do. So behind-the-scenes stuff.
Right.
In
So this is-
post-production, I love doing
Oh,
like
the post,
all that,
yeah,
all that
yeah.
editing, audio stuff
Right,
like that.
yeah.
It's really cool. Yeah.
So this isn't really the stuff that you crave.
Yeah.
I may have mentioned I did radio down in Ottawa for 15 years.
Oh wow.
And I was I was part of the staff for the first 3 or 4 years of that.
Okay,
And then
okay.
I ended up just doing a show for forever.
Mhm.
But yeah, it was interesting when people would come in, and it was campus based, right? So
Okay.
it was all volunteer
Yeah.
produced. There was
Yeah.
just a very small staff of us part timers who were more or less holding the thing together more. So it was interesting. Well, actually, there was no money on the table, at least for the right. So you
Right,
had to
right.
find people's motivation.
Uh-huh.
That was always the task. What would
Right.
you like to do?
Yeah,
'Cause
exactly.
You want them to come in and help produce the stuff because
Yeah.
you have, there was.
With no money involved.
Yeah,
it's
that's
like
right. Yeah, it's an interesting
yeah.
dilemma for. Well, maybe dilemma is not the right word. It's actually an opportunity because people are coming in
Right,
to be
right.
creative
Yeah.
and participate.
And
it
it's
might
not
be,
about the money; it's about the
No, that's right.
creativity.
Yeah, that's actually
Yeah.
it was actually fun to be in that situation because you couldn't threaten people with firing them. Well, except insofar as they wanted to be on the air,
Right. Right.
or do something.
Yeah.
But that was one of the interesting.
Uh-huh.
Issues was trying to assess what, as you described,
Mhm.
you're more interested in the technical stuff,
Yeah,
the editing, as
exactly.
opposed to being on the face on the.
Right,
or the
right.
voice on the-
I have dabbled into like being a host for a show and with news, like doing stand-ups on location and stuff
Right.
like that. But I feel like I strive more creatively in post-production because I get to put the whole story together.
Right.
You know,
and
and
most
it
well,
just
maybe
comes
just
in
talk
like
about
that,
that a little
so-
because
Yeah.
a lot of people might not appreciate
Yeah,
just how. I mean, maybe if I can think of examples, the interviews with actors.
Yes.
Who talk, well, we just did our shoot, and
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm in or out, or if, what's in or what's out,
Yeah.
right? Because that's all post-production
For
stuff,
sure.
which is,
Yeah.
so the
There is so many more hours
Mm-hmm.
going into pre-production and post-production as opposed to like just
actual
filming
shooting.
it.
Yeah,
Everything
right.
comes together like just
And that's
for
what,
the one
I guess
shoot.
the interesting thing is, as I say, for the general public, they probably maybe would have caught actors and talking about having shot something, but they don't really know how it's going to come out.
Right.
And that kind of gets
Right.
to the point of how much creativity
Yeah.
and how much control in that post-production. And you got all the pieces,
Right.
in which case there might be a dozen different possible stories in all of those pieces.
Exactly.
So which story is going to get
Right.
told, right? That's the post-production process.
Yeah, every
which is,
time.
as you say, a fascinating, and you get the final creative. I'm obviously the director is controlling all of that to some extent, right? But that's
exactly.
making the calls.
But yeah, being
part of
an
that
actor,
process.
Yeah, being a part. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I like people's reactions. When it all comes together. First, like you film it and they're so excited about seeing it, like, oh, I can't wait to see it, and then they finally do, and it might not be what they expect. It might be better, but
Right.
it's still exciting to see.
Well, and I go back to those little interview snippets I've seen on TV where actors are talking about that, and depending on how it's edited, things can a particular scene might have a completely different meaning almost.
And it could be
than what seemed to be the intention at the time that the actors were in fact playing out. Right?
A lot of that happens in documentary style movies, where they're interviewing someone who doesn't really know the true idea of the documentary, but they're just like giving them the dirt, right?
Right.
Not knowing, and then in editing, you could edit that, so it
and plus the voiceover tells a different story.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
It can frame everything.
Yeah. So you got to be careful what you say.
Right. Yeah. Oh well, you're just So you said you're in the second. Is it a 2-year program? Is it
2-year program? You have the option of doing a third year to get a double diploma in the film. So you and that goes for film students too. You can do 2 years of broadcasting and then 1 year of film.
So the film students are separate.
And then
So you're in broadcasting.
Yeah, broadcasting and film are two totally separate things.
Oh, they are.
Yeah.
Okay. So okay.
Broadcasting has to do with a lot of radio, TV. Film is more like movies, and makeup and stage setup and stuff like that. And their program is a lot different. Like if you talk to any of the film students and then talk to a broadcasting student, it's a totally different thing.
Can you describe that difference a little bit? Your sense of it? Now you're on one side of it, but that's fine. That's fair.
I don't know. I feel like the broadcasters are a little bit more, not serious, but they're more like down to earth and take everything into like a little bit more professional, get out there.
Gee,
kind
I
of.
better get the film guys in here to defend themselves now.
No, they would have so much to say. The filmies and the broadcasters kind of bash heads because...
Really? Oh, that's interesting. Little cultural distinction there. Yeah, that's fair.
But
now
I have a lot of film friends.
Yeah, but now, is it on the film side that they'd be doing documentaries, or are they doing the stage stuff?
I'm not too sure. We do a lot of documentary style stuff, which is kind of film.
Yeah, of course.
I guess.
Yeah.
But
they're doing the actors.
Like more scripted stuff, like more
theater or movies.
Theater stuff, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I could see
like
those
that
might be different,
too, but
different personality drawn to acting.
Yeah.
Right. Sure.
Acting's cool. Have you ever been to any theaters or anything like that?
Not here. Well, I was in Ottawa for 30 plus years, right?
Wow,
so there was some theaters that I would go to there, small kind of. Trying to think. Well, I guess Magnus Theatre is here, right?
I'm not too familiar with the theaters here. I'm from Toronto, so I kind of just know the bigger ones. But
years ago, I went and saw stuff, but it's been a long time.
Okay.
And the university used to have some theater here.
Oh, really?
Again, when I was going to university, I would go and see a few things there because they have a theater with a stage.
And everyone would come.
But that's well, of course, there's now the new auditorium. So but again, I haven't been to see anything there yet.
It'd be kind of cool to see what they have going on. I feel like with theater, there's always like plays that kind of goes in cycles. Like the Lion King comes around,
right?
And then,
which is all fair. I mean, it's we're in a big global world now.
Oh, yeah.
But I am very much interested in local culture and the idea
of
having, as I was discussing before, the idea of local voices speaking from a local point of view to the world, right?
For sure.
And because so much of media has become globalized, it's
oh, for sure.
Now, well, of course, the interesting thing is in the new social media era, of course, people the platform's relatively cheap, right? So everybody can now tell their story.
I was just going to say, news is using, like, exactly. Whatever they can get, like a cell phone, right. If that person's the only filmer on set and he has that, and it's the only video that the whole world can get,
It seems to have,
they'll use
we've
that.
leapt from these highly centralized broadcasting facilities,
right.
radio, television, and into this other world. And they're both kind of there at the same time, right? Because the big stations are still out. They're the ones that have survived,
Of course.
So you have that still relatively well orchestrated presentation, right? Centralized presentation, and then you have the chaos, right, of the internet, right? And it's just total chaos
of everything
YouTube
from everyone, just at any time.
And that's what it is kind of interesting because they are almost polar opposites.
Yeah, exactly.
In terms of their structure, and therefore, to some extent, one assumes in terms of the content they're producing. It's curious to imagine what's going to unfold from this.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just kind of wide open, I guess. Do you produce any YouTube stuff? Is that
I have a lot of music videos that are kind of going around. I'm really into hip hop, if you can believe it. But I just love that sort of music, and I've kind of been doing it on my own. And but I love YouTube. I'm on YouTube all the time, and I mean it's the future. It's
it's the present. I guess actually, the future is interesting, right?
That's
because
true.
I mean, I'm older than you, so TV we were the TV kids.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, my generation, we were the TV kids that gave us Woodstock and all that other stuff.
Oh,
right?
my God. I couldn't imagine being at Woodstock.
Well, I wasn't there, but the interesting thing is we used to have concerts here. I played in a band way back in the day, and it was the thing that I couldn't help but notice when the announcers who would stand in front of the mics at these festivals, they were all using the lines that they'd heard in the Woodstock movie. It was kind of there was a certain pattern, a way of talking to the audience that seemed to come from the Woodstock movie, but which is again gets back to the idea how media can create culture, right? Because it became a pattern, and it was because of the media that propagated this. In the case of film or whatever. The interesting thing was, of course, we were the rebels of the day, but we were the TV kids. It was as if we were the wrench in the machine of that television produced, right? And there was a variety of things. There was, we were the first real wave of kids who went to university campuses, and the campuses were a source of social unrest, right? In the 60s. So there was a variety of factors played into that generational reaction, I think. And television was part of it because we all shared a certain experience because of that television. And one of the factors was the Vietnam War. It became the kind of backdrop for a very kind of broad sense of protest. Might seem particularly political, but we all related. We all related to Neil Young's song about Kent State, and because and that was very much, as I say, the television generation.
It's kind of sad now, I feel like, because someone like Neil Young, who's coming up, like with the history, and everyone was kind of listening, and they were getting it at the same time.
That's right.
The same way
through
radio
or
television.
And we also had the records, right?
Yeah.
And so we'd all be listening to Jefferson Airplane.
Yeah.
Revolution, God, a revolution, and Volunteers of America. Now that's all American music, but Neil Young was we had a few voices on the stage that gave us a bit of a
Bob Dylan.
Yeah, or was I going to say the Canadian stuff?
Oh yeah, the Canadian stuff.
The Neil Young or they had everything else, and we had the hip.
Yeah,
the tragically hip, right?
Gotta love the hip.
Yeah. So,
Road
but
apples.
that gave a certain again a kind of focus to the culture.
Oh, for sure.
And again, that's what I mean by saying we were the TV kids
history,
or the radio kids. that gave us a kind of a shared culture.
Right.
And I sort of wonder, without knowing, what shared culture the internet is creating. It actually seems to be so diverse, right? Everybody's there. That I just wonder. So, just as a young guy, how do you see it? Because I guess I'm looking at it from that TV Kids generation, right? Sort of looking back and saying, okay, this seems different. We were different in our time, right?
For sure. TV has definitely come a long way since the kids would watch the show at 6:00. And that's when it was on, and and if you missed it, you missed it, and you'd have to wait till next Monday or whatever, right, to watch it. And now, I mean, you have these babies almost on their iPads, almost on the internet to get these apps for the games and stuff. So, and TV's on demand, so you don't even have to know when a show's on. You can kind of like, if you want to pay for cable, you can flip to whatever you want at any time, and it's just totally a different thing. So there's good things and bad things that come with the technology.
Well,
growth.
the thing is, I guess I'm still I guess because of those habits, I still watch the 9:00 news on television, right? That's my the consequence is for people who do that is, of course, you do have a shared, like there's a half dozen or more stories that all the people who are staring into that media are aware of because of the centralized nature of the distribution, right?
I think the problem is that it gets swayed, though.
Oh, of course. I'm not saying. That there's all sorts of issues there, right?
Exactly.
To be critical about that, it's controlled media, controlled perceptions, controlled ideas. On the other hand, then in this chaotic world of the internet, I guess that you might have channels that people kind of congregate around,
right?
But which is fine. I guess I'm just always curious about what the implications are without knowing what they might in fact be.
Right.
And what are the repercussions of that for society? Are we still, because if some things become so disorganized and just that is not centrally, is the food going to show up in the morning? Exactly. You sort of think about how the economy is organized.
Yeah. It blows my mind. You wonder how programs are still running, because you're just like, do people really want to know about all these celebrities?
Right.
Do I really care? Why are you spending so much time on their lives when we have so many other issues? I guess they're just boring, right? And no one cares about the missing Aboriginal women. They're focused more on, I don't know, no, that's true. And you sort of wonder, at what point is there a point? How much of a population has to pay attention to something for it to be taken care of, if it's important? Right.
Like, say, the food supply, or the planet.
Right.
Are we poisoning ourselves? And at what point do we actually collectively gather ourselves and go, okay, we really should do something about the fact that the ice is melting and the sea levels are rising and Florida's drowning.
Yeah, it's organized chaos.
Which I guess the world always has been. I gather maybe we've overly.
I think it's snowballed.
We've imagined ourselves as in control and think that now that maybe we're not, that everything's going to fall apart. But we were maybe never that fully in control of anything in the first place.
Exactly. Maybe it was just.
It's just to get on our knees and start praying again.
Yeah. We're either here to build or here to destroy.
Oh, goodness.
And if we want to expand it beyond, just television and just how everyone connects, I feel like, I don't know, it's bigger than what is projected on TV, There's a lot of stuff happens that the news won't tell everyone, and it's just kind of sad. The world is...
Well, but the internet has opened that up.
Yeah.
I guess
that's true. That's
right?
true.
There are all those voices are kind of hurt. Well, they're there, whether they're heard or not. That's the interesting question.
Yeah.
Can, insofar as a society has to prioritize its issues in order to act on them, is the internet capable of doing that?
Right.
That's what.
I think it is, but the problem is that we're so drawn to like entertainment.
Yeah, that was the crazy stuff.
Yeah, the little stuff
That
just
seems
gets
to be,
overlooked.
just on that point, it's a preoccupation. It's something I raise in my, the teacher's coming out now. But the idea that it's not entirely clear to me the information platform has really materialized the democratic possibilities. I don't really, other than ministers who are tweeting blah 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 whatever in the course of their day, that the information's potential of this new era of media has really created the opportunity for interacting with governance
For sure.
and decision making.
Oh yeah.
It just hasn't really. There's this kind of it's like there's this world of noise around the political system.
Yeah.
But the political system is still playing by some old rules.
Yeah.
And I just sort of wonder about, well, okay, what's the new form of democracy, if there is one, that's kind of buried in this new media that hasn't really been given birth to yet?
Exactly.
And what's it going to look like? Which is kind of what I ask my students, and we all kind of sit there and go, I'm not quite sure.
Yeah.
Which we're all in the same boat.
Exactly.
We don't really have crystal balls.
It's the telephone, like the game of the telephone, I think, even though like a lot of people have their voices and whoever's tweeting for the political person,
Right, exactly.
Whoever's doing that is getting the information and then passing it on.
Right.
And everyone's passing on this information. Then the issue gets addressed when it should
there's,
just be
one model is the idea that people with their cell phones are like little sensors out there, right? And they're sensing little local situations. And if they could, you think of local politics, and if people would sort of communicate and say, okay, well, we really need this pothole fixed here or whatever, all the way up to all the other, need a bridge here, and in other words, maybe a little more organization at that very local level that starts to have a concrete benefit interacting with the political powers. Or the other alternative, which there was again, I'm the CBC guy right now. I watch CBC. So there was a story on Ebola, right? And actually, I just aired it played it to some of my students today. And I guess they were using social media to track the Ebola virus because they could see where people were moving from their cell phone activity, right? Basically, big data mining, right, is what they're doing. So they're analyzing all of these flows of information. And I'll share a question I often ask my students, which is, who are the primary users of your devices? And so and the first answer that most of us want, well, I am. I'm the guy, the keyboard. I'm the guy handling the keyboard. Right. But as I like to point out, as soon as you plug that thing into your cable line or your telephone line, it's now a two-way source of communication. And the same thing with all those devices. There's this, I don't know if you're following this at all, but there's the big debate about metadata, right? And the fact that the various intelligence services in Canada, the United States, and they say, well, we're just following the metadata, which is...
I'd love to learn more about that. I don't
Well,
know
basically,
too much,
my understanding, which is, I'm not an expert on it, but it's basically the metadata is so-and-so and their device makes a call to so-and-so and their device at a certain time and at a certain place. So that's kind of the data they were using to follow the Ebola virus activity, right? And they could see that people, so if they knew one village was infected and they could see from the cell phone activity that people were actually migrating, they knew they potentially were migrating the Ebola virus. Now this was, as the story was saying, I can't remember the company that was... something Flow. I can't remember what it was. The name of the company that was analyzing the data, but they weren't analyzing the data in real time. They could only look at the data after.
Right.
But the idea, I guess, is our devices are not really just ours.
No, not at all.
We're being tracked constantly.
Definitely.
The whole big data and mining data is where it's at, as far as people in Silicon Valley and governments and whatever is there. So the idea that you're engaged in a private conversation, people need to just wake up to the fact that your device is being monitored
Nothing's really safe anymore.
Well, it's just not your device.
It's not.
It's just not your device.
It's not your Facebook. It's not your phone.
Yeah,
it's
the
not your
model
plan.
of all of that's the other
not.
question I often ask my students is, what do you think the business model for Facebook and any of these free services is?
Right.
Well, they're following you.
Yeah.
That's the business model. They're following you and basically commercializing that information. That's what the game is.
There was like a news story. Like if you put your picture on Facebook, they can legally use it for like an advertisement or something, and it's just...
So in other words, they're
where does
basically
the
gathering
line?
huge amounts of information for their own purposes, which
Right.
really has nothing to do with your purposes of using the device.
Yeah.
Getting back to the issue, so where is that all going? Who's
Right.
going to control that big
Exactly.
data? Who's it going to be used on behalf of?
Yeah.
Is it going to be, the new democratic society or the new totalitarian state? It's a little unclear where that's going.
I really don't want to live to see the day when they're putting like little chips in babies when they come out, like little cats, and they're just like, oh, track your little one.
Yeah, no, that's what that was when I was teaching in Ottawa. That's what I was. That's the next step.
Yeah.
The embedded device, or that you just become your brain becomes a monitorable device. Right.
So strange, so creepy. The control system.
But and the interesting thing is we're getting there, and we're getting there on the basis of a kind of a false pretense, if you like, at least insofar as we're sold devices, we're sold everything as a question of comfort, convenience, something to our benefit, right?
Exactly. Everything is drawn towards our benefit.
Right.
For sure.
That's the way it's sold to us.
Yeah.
But that's not why it's being sold
Not
to
at
us
all.
necessarily.
It's so backwards.
There's always a piece of information, as I'm inclined to say, that is not present in the advertising,
Right.
which is actually the real reason the advertising is taking place. So, in other words, you're being, if you like, seduced into an activity by saying, "Oh, this would be to your benefit if you did this, this, and this."
Yeah.
It would be to our benefit for this other reason we're not going to talk about.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what you always have to be
aware of.
If you want to sort of get depressed or understand where it's all likely going to lead.
If you were so consciously focused on that, shopping would just not be fun at all.
No, yeah. Well, this is it. The idea that through your device, people will see a store or whatever. You're 100 feet from the store and start pitching you ads on your phone.
Yeah.
And again, that's just the implication of the technology, right?
Yeah,
And it's only a step away to have that embedded in your brain.
Right. I was watching a show. Have you ever heard of Futurama? It's
yes.
a cartoon in space.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, okay. I haven't seen it.
And it's kind of like Family Guy, but
all right. Okay.
they're in space. This team is in space, and I was watching this episode, and she has like this kind of space like wrist type thing, and she pushes this button, and this advertisement comes up, and it's like. Just for you, you know, it's really coming to that because
it's like the Google ads in the corner that are pitched to
exactly
tracking you and pitching ads based on your location.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's where it's all. That's the whole. That's the theme of and the motivation, right? Of what's being built,
right?
Which is just the total surveillance society.
Yeah,
you're.
Like, how much does society really know you to get down to, like, the specifics? It's a scary thing to,
we are just kind of trundling down this road without necessarily fully appreciating all the implications.
Yeah, exactly. The technology's great.
Keep talking.
But what are the negative effects of long-term use of just sitting at a computer, getting all your information, doing all that stuff? You know, constantly on your cell phone. Where's life? Like, what?
Well, everyone.
You go to a concert and it's just like your phone. Just like put that away and just like live. It's right here. Yeah. Why do you want to go back to that picture to show someone else? I guess, but.
Well, that's kind of for me. That's jumping in my canoe and just turning it all off and.
Oh my gosh! Right? I love camping.
Yeah.
It's one of the.
Well, we still have it's one of the reasons why I decided to come back. It's amongst others, is just to get out of that.
The city vibe.
Yeah. Cubicles, people stuck in cubicles staring at screens, right? Okay. And we still have the opportunity, having a a sense here of a real natural world. It's
Oh, yeah.
still here. It
Yeah.
hasn't been destroyed yet.
Oh yeah. Coming from Toronto to here
can
has
imagine, yeah,
definitely
yeah.
been just like
I don't know
a
Toronto.
breath of fresh air, you know.
Yeah.
Even though it's like really cold down here, it's just nice to be like a little bit north, you know, and just get away from it.
There's still a sense of nature here.
Yeah, for sure.
It's kind of hard, even in Ottawa. The way I would describe it down there is it's just really there's no substantial geography. You're not really. The city is your geography. The buildings are your geography.
Yeah, the concrete jungle.
Yeah, but here you can just go, well, just you travel a mile or two, and you're suddenly So. And it is a cultural distinction, and I think it's something we should be careful of, that we don't lose it, because it's that's the thing I guess I'm always kind of wondering about. At one point, I mean, are we really getting ready to live in the International Space Station? Which brings up the question of, so why are we going to Mars again? Because it's just a giant desert.
Yeah,
most of us aren't trying. Most people are not trying to go and inhabit the Sahara Desert because it's a desert.
Right.
I mean, there are those folks who figured out how to live from oasis to oasis. They don't try to live in the desert.
No.
They live on. They're trying to figure out how to hop from one oasis to the next one. No one's really trying to live in the desert.
No.
But that's what Mars is. Yeah. Mars is just from at least.
Hey. It'd be cool to live in space, but...
Well, I'm sure it would, but I'm not sure we should destroy the planet in order to get there.
Exactly. What are we doing to help rebuild the planet if it can ever be rebuilt?
Well, it'll rebuild itself. We just have to stop trying to destroy it. It's Mother Nature has her own technique, so to speak.
Yeah.
So. Anyways, Nigel, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me.
It was kind of fun, and I'm not sure what we were doing exactly, but we're building a platform to the future. Building a platform to the future.
Conversing, trying.
That's right. So
of course.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So this has been. I guess we can wrap it up here, Katie. Sure. This has been Spirit Canoe. My name is Bob Jean. Nigel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And see you next week.
Baby, I miss my best friend. Yes, I do. She locked the door.